need to look it up because it really simplifies who and what we are because we lived a long time and we're mainly black, but but we're going to talk about that today too, how we got a little whiteness in us. But we're going to talk about it openly, and you'll get a chance to comment if you want. But more importantly, we're going to talk like we normally talk when we are in these groups and have been doing that for now 57 years. And Trevor, I want you to say hi, but to start with and kind of talk a little bit about kind of like what we've talked about prior to this podcast. Go ahead.
Mhm. Um, it's a pleasure to be able to sit at this table and chime in as far as what we have discussed so far. Um, I'm just here to observe and, like you said, just give my little summary of what we're doing or whatnot. Um, History, I can see that history is a big part of the Monday Nighters, which I definitely appreciate. And yeah, I'm just here to soak everything up.
Okay, well, when you say soak
Hmm.
everything up, does that mean that you're gonna let it run for a while and then and then go on? I mean, how you plan to soak it up?
um, well, just try to just keep an ear to what it is that you guys are really getting across. Um, just me having the understanding that you guys are the elders, so I have to pay attention. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, you know, this word mentoring keeps getting thrown around, but do you what do you seem or what do you feel or what do you turn on when you hear the word mentor? What do you hear about?
Um, for me, as far as mentor, the word mentoring or whatnot, I think that it will be definitely good for me in my at where I'm at in my life right now. So yeah,
Are you 30 yet?
33.
33.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, we got you beat. We in our
Right.
80s, and we even got a couple of nonagenarians,
Hmm.
which is people in their 90s. So we're 80.
Oh, okay.
I always say we were born into Jim Crow and caught hell ever
Hmm.
since.
Hmm.
And so if that's that's the guideline you're going to get.
Hmm.
And this is a perfect time to introduce one of the guys who is an oddity, but a very decent oddity. We usually think in terms of oddities being just that odd, but sometimes a blessing is all wrapped up in that oddity, and that's what we find out. And let me introduce to everybody Don Williams. Now, Don, I'm gonna give you a chance to kind of talk about like why you think you're on this podcast, but more importantly, how'd you get to be part of Monday Night Football? Guys, old black guys.
Well, over the years, I have been in the military for 20 years. I have worked for the Department of Energy for about close to 20 years. And then got myself ordained. But all of that time,
Say that word again.
ordained
Mm-hmm. And
in
that
the
means
Episcopal Church.
okay, bishop,
No, not a bishop.
but the Church of Bishops.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Anyway, I grew up in the Bay Area of California, in an area where we had as much integration as you could have. In other words, we had peaceful coexistence at that time in all our schools. And so I grew up uh, with people of all races. Some of my early childhood friends spent a few years in concentration camps in Nevada.
Okay,
Uh,
so when you say all races, you mean all races.
I mean, all races: Hispanic, Black, uh, all Orientals, Chinese, Japanese, etc. And through that, I picked up some things that have carried with me through the rest of my life. Skipping ahead, uh, in the Air Force, because we were integrated and there was still discrimination and may still be, while we were integrated, I found out that you measure an individual not by anything except their worth. And their worth is how good they did what they were supposed to be doing and what kind of a human being they were.
Mm-hmm.
And that has stuck with me. And then in New Orleans, when we lived there, basically the neighborhoods there are fairly integrated. So that there were always people and then in New Orleans, because of the ratio of black people, there were more black people walking by the house and chatting as we sat on the front porch and that type of thing. So there was this, nothing close and tight, but there was a thing there. When we got up here, a lady who I love very much said she was getting awfully bored living out there on the other side of the other state. There's nothing but white bread and cream cheese. And she was right. And a few years ago, I felt, because of my ordination, I guess, I don't know, I'm not out here to preach anything, I felt like I needed to do something because I was tied to the Troost line. And so the first thing we did was, when papers started to go expensive and not have a whole lot in them, we subscribed to the Call. A little plug for Jason here. And we found that to be a very good newspaper. And then there was this bunch of people called the Monday Nite Footballers. Now, I am one of the 2 nanogenarians in this organization.
That ain't all you are.
And this is a bunch of old guys. And I thought, these guys sound interesting. And my wife said, they do sound interesting. Why don't you go? And I said, well, I don't know where to go. So I put out some feelers on how to get a hold of this Jim Nunnelly, who wrote the thing. And I didn't get anything back. But one day he put something about Bob's in there. So I looked up Bob's, and I went to Bob's with the idea of meeting these guys. And I was met by a young gentleman whose dad was a member of this organization. And he told me they would be in a little bit. And of course, while I was sitting there in this bar having my drink, I'm sure that there was all kinds of people running around.
Oh yeah, they smoked you out good.
In fact, I think somebody thought I was an undercover narc, and I'm a little old and a little white for that. But
Well,
anyway,
either that or a police officer. It was either one of those. And
so I met these fellas, and they seemed very nice, and they were welcoming.
Mhm.
Now, I understand it's a lot easier for me than it is for one of them to accept a stranger walking in.
into a bar at 4:00 in the afternoon. We got you down in history, brother.
Anyway, so I just kept coming back, and I found people that I, one, had a lot in common with. I found people, two, that I liked very much as friends, acquaintances, etc. And I found a group of gentlemen who are very astute and opened themselves up to me.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you something too. At this point, I also grew up and was born in the same time history as these other guys, and of course, I didn't feel any of it. But I could read about that, and I have, because I was an airman in the Air Force. I knew about the Tuskegee Airmen. And so it has always interested me, some things about Black history. And you can read about Black history and you can understand it to a point. But when I look at the man sitting next to me and the story that he can tell me comes from a personal thing, from person to person. It's a heart-to-heart thing. And I can feel that. And I have great empathy for that. And it has made a difference. And I think, frankly, if more times people were open to freely talk about these kinds of things, we would tend to negate some of the issues we've had. And that's how I got started here. And I appreciate very much their being here and being for me.
Well, you know, it was really funny that the day you came, you just wandered in. But the guys that I know don't know him necessarily by name who sat at the bar. They never raised their heads to look at you, but they saw you and they heard you and they could identify you. And they couldn't wait till one of us walked in and tell her that there was somebody looking for y'all. And of course, anytime that happens in an all black establishment, it really means trouble. And so whoever it is usually ain't gonna come right up to the front and say real quickly that I am that person you're looking for, because that ain't usually gonna be good experience. But the fact that you did that, and I kind of like the chronology of what you did. You kind of read about us in the paper, and that said something about our history that I've related to to Trevor several times. Is that if you kind of get history, even from people who lived the history, in addition to being part of that history, then you ought to be enhanced and better off than you would be if you didn't have that history at all. Now, it says something about your cloth. You said a man of the cloth. They usually get a pass when it comes to that. And what I'm saying is, but it ain't safe to open up and say who you are. Now, it's, you know, to get along, it would be, you'd be better off being a rather guess than know factually what you are, because you could be, you know, calling the police afterwards because somebody might have robbed you. But the point that you had enough insight or enough be moved by something to come and find us in our own character says something about you. Tell us a little more about that feeling or that article or whatever brought you to that point where you thought you could come to a black club in the middle of the day where everybody can see you. And I want you to know that one of the people looked for your car because he wanted to inspect it to make sure that you wasn't who somebody welcome. But anyway, what turned you up to that? Because Trevor ought to know that people like you exist.
I don't know. I do know, and I'm not trying to be religious here, okay? I do know that the life I live, because of the way I grew up and et cetera, that something told me I should be connecting with, quote unquote, the east side of town.
Okay. Which
Now,
is,
you can call it the spirit, you can call it whatever you want to call it,
I
okay?
thought you were going to say you can call it the east side or black side or whatever, but when you say the east side of town, you're talking about where mainly black people live. Would
I
that be
am.
right?
I am. And I live close to that area now. So
Well,
I'm kind of a part of it.
okay, you're kind of close to it, I would say. But anyway, you know, like it's remarkable of how friendly we received you. And I want to push that away because there's a notion that people are not welcome. And that's why, you know, right today, I think we're a very welcoming group, suspicious as hell, but welcoming. And nobody, you know, robbed you. Is that right?
No. And I'm going to quote you here a little bit
All
now.
right.
Something Jim said to me, sometime after 6 or 8 months of being there on a reasonably regular basis, that perhaps my being there brought to them an ability not to be, or to be somewhat more accepting
Mm-hmm.
of outsiders to the community. And so between the two of us, I think we both picked up not only a friendship, but something that goes a little further than that.
Mm-hmm. It was a new way of bonding.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we wasn't exactly expecting you, but more importantly, like we had to kind of deal with some of the same frustrations that you were having by your being there, and that was good for us to realize that maybe we ought to be a little bit more outreaching or outgoing, like you. Now, I'm not going to edify you, and you won't find your picture on the wall, but it was kind of a good exercise because we didn't know what to do neither.
Well, and the other thing too is I read a book once called Toxic Charity, and it's about people who give money to help quote unquote people when the people should be doing it themselves or could be doing it themselves without you interfering, but the people having the resources. And one of the things I realized over here, and I say over here, was that there are a lot of very intelligent and brilliant people over here. And I hate to use the word that way because it tends to divide, but I went to a schooling with Jim of young black men who are learning to code, and women. And those kids were so damn sharp, it was unbelievable. And I've met a lot of other people who are extremely intelligent and know how to correct these situations. And I think what they need is more bodies to help rather than people with money coming in and trying to run things and tell them how to do things.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you got that because, when you do kind of think about the race problem, part of the race problem is that we don't talk enough off camera to be able to kind of feel the inside of a person that's just as welcoming or non-welcoming as you were, and that runs for both sides because we're so caught up in the defense of what we're going to say, or if you notice, use a military term, our tensions are enhanced. We call the attention by just the different that you're different, and of course we talked about it lots of times, and we talked a long time before we ever extended you an invitation to come back. Now, you came back, and that's fine, and that shows how much you wanted to be there. But nobody ever said when you coming back or when you're going to meet with us. And with every organization, believe me, there's a public meeting, and then there's a little private meeting. Now, the private one is you want to get to because that's where people are influenced, and I think that transcends race. But Trevor, as you kind of move in this so far, what have you heard that may be worth being talked about?
Basically, just understanding that not judging all books by the same cover. Everybody, everybody deserves a chance to present themselves as for who they really are, and if it's not healthy or if it doesn't add up to the rules of humanity, then I guess then that's when you can make your decision whether or not you want to deal with somebody. But because that's kind of how I look at it.
Okay.
Regardless of how can I say it, yeah, it don't matter what color you are. It's about how do you feel on the inside, what type of spirit you have or whatnot. And once you see what type of spirit somebody has, then you'll be able to make your decision or whatnot if it adds up, so.
Well, I just want you to know that in that bar, there were lots of people who saw the difference real quickly and went into whatever their history had been with people like he got to be something wrong, and he's looking for y'all.
Mhm.
That was the question.
Right.
He's looking for y'all. Now
Mhm.
he ain't trying to find you, or
Mhm.
he ain't welcoming, but he was looking for y'all, and
Mhm.
that's code word for if you got something to hide, you better keep hiding it because this guy is onto it because he's coming to look for y'all, and he specifically asked for the Monday Night Footballers.
Mhm.
And when I say that, it sort of was a was kind of like a defense mechanism
Mhm.
for us in case you didn't see, or in case you didn't hear, or in case you didn't see that strange car parked out there.
Mhm.
There's a guy in here looking for y'all, and he's white.
Mhm.
And of course, for us, all of a sudden, it was kind of like for years we ain't never had no white person in our group. But more importantly, like a little uppityness there, that came about.
Mhm.
But like, are we going to allow somebody to invade our territory? And when I say invade our territory, whatever our is, whatever territory
Mhm.
that was, but the general feeling is we never extended an invitation until 7 or 8 months down the road. We wanted to see if he was just kind of a flyby, come by and check him out and see what his name was, see if he'll come back, see if he'll act the same way as he was acting before.
Mhm.
I mean, to note any changes, there's, kind of like look you over real good. But but in the meantime, and I want to say this to you, Don. In the meantime, when it came up to vote or to welcome you back, if you must, or give you the choice to join up, there was a 100% favor of you. Because during that time when you were kind of talking about or not talking about it, and you notice we didn't give you a lot of time to talk because we kind of wanted to see what you're made of. And it was a good lesson on both sides. And I'm proud to say that I don't know if it was your faith or whether it was your conversation or whether your Air Force experience. I don't know what it was, but like there was something that we could learn from you because part of what we want to do is not only talk about Chiefs football, but also to learn how to navigate this world, which is complex and getting more complex, and to some extent getting more racist. So we kind of like wanted to get up close enough to kind of understand it. And I know how you feel about me. I'm kind of a guy that likes to lead people in areas they haven't been, but most importantly, study it when you see that happening. And I have to say to you that it was an awful good experience to have you kind of look for us, but a better experience for us to welcome you in the way that we have. When I say welcome you, you might not have got a good spillover, and this is one of the first times that we've gone public with you. But we've kind of hinted. As a matter of fact, I remember talking to a couple of guys about what we're going to call you, how we're going to refer to you, because we can't keep saying that white guy. And I remember putting in my phone your number, and I just said that white guy because it's kind of like different. I don't know if you put in your phone those black guys, but whatever. But
No.
but but I want you to know that was on the tip of our minds. And over time, it's kind of like Trevor said, like you're seeing how to navigate, the difficult conversations that we must have in this world. And one of them is race, about race. But the other difficult conversation is about just living together, period, whether or not you're talking about a race or not. And when certain things happen, it's better to know who totally at least hears your side. Now, we're not looking for people to be on our side. I want you to know that. We're looking for people that will give us a perspective that allows us to grow and go better than what it been without you. And but I'm telling you, that people up there, Bob, still know who you are. And I bet you, your biggest mark of acceptance is that they didn't rob you. And because I know some people check you out for other reasons other than where you're going or whether you want to be with some fellow black guys that you read about in the paper that might not meant too much to most of them. But they would say, is this something that I can gain, from knowing about this guy? Because he got to be lost. I mean, he can't be coming up here on purpose. But anyway, I just want you to know it's been a good, solid relationship, and the fact that we can talk about it here on this podcast is an indication of the depth of the relationship. That it ain't about black and white. It's about just about each other. Can you have a good conversation? And you've been very knowledgeable about certain things that we kind of lean in to not only hear what you got to say, not only agree with you, but also seeing every time you speak, there's probably a little scrutiny going on in all of us. Is this guy for real? And is he really coming in false garment, to do something bad about us? But anyway, we want to welcome you, but most importantly, want to use this podcast as an opportunity to say that publicly, because people got to say where people are. But more importantly, you got to live the life you talk about. And so many people talk about the race problem, have never experienced it. And you're walking into Bob's. I mean, Bob's ain't no place for all of you all that. I mean, it ain't no luxurious place. It ain't like the White House. It's kind of had a concrete floor and had a bartender, and the bartender had already been handed a note about your license plates in case somebody needed them. Now, I don't know whether she was part of the scheme or not, or whatever, of looking you over, but I want to tell you publicly that you passed on both occasions. And then when the group came in, and you were impressive, you said the right words, that you had been reading about us, because I wanted people to know that this is what you don't know about the people who sit around in bars. It ain't all narcs, or it ain't all people who are strung out on something or with a sad story or unemployed. These are people who have a vision of life, but more importantly, want to make friends in a way that is conducive to the good of us both. And so at this point, I'm going to say to Trevor, what's your experience in talking about Don? Now that you know this part.
Right. I understand it a little more now. I guess I got to give him credit or commend him for, holding his own and going through that and experiencing that. It just shows you that his intentions were good, obviously. So I got to give him credit for that, because that can be a very, very, very uncomfortable type of situation. So, yeah.
And the part of you that I want to get to is that you're a writer here at the Kansas City Call.
Mm-hmm.
And so does it give you any kind of insight, or what has been your experience there?
Yes, it gives me insight. Like I said, I've got to give him credit for the fact that he walked up in there and handled his business. He was there for the right reasons. He wasn't on no BS.
Mm-hmm.
So he was there for the right reasons. So I gotta give him credit for that. So
right. Say that to him right now. Would you do that?
I give you credit for doing that, because not everybody will do that. So yeah, you got some courage. So yeah,
we got some
especially
courage
in this day, especially at this time with
do.
everything that's going on right now. Yeah, that's yeah.
Used to be a song say knock 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 on wood.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're gonna knock knock on wood. And with that, we're gonna end this podcast, and we'll be back to you. But I want to know that you're gonna be moved enough to write about this at one point in your career. All right.
Got you.
All right, we're here. We'll be back next Monday to be it all over talking about the Chiefs football game, and I want you to know here at the past, at the end, that Harry Seifert guy picked the
Buffaloes?
the
Bills?
the The what?
The Bills?
The Bills, the Buffalo, to beat the Chiefs, and all the rest of us did. So sometimes we, Don, this is for your pleasure. Sometimes we hate him more than we possibly were going to hate you. But he turned out to be right. And I'm trying to draw a conclusion here that sometimes your first thoughts are misleading. And so, you've certainly lived up to that. And we want to work that through with you. And now that you've been here over the years, you kind of know what we do, and we get involved in a lot of conversations. And I'm going to write about this one too. Someone told me I've written over 500 articles about the group. Well, one of them is going to be dedicated to you, Don. I'm telling you straight up. And it's going to be a good experience.
Okay, I've got to say one thing. Way too much praise.
Okay. Well, we tend to overpraise and talk about things that we're interested in. And just know that we're interested in. But just know them people at the bar knew who you were before you knew who you were. I don't know if they had fast check on the license plates or what, but I can tell you they know who you are, and if you were to ever come back in there, they know exactly who you were. But it's kind of that little silent detection system that we have, or defense mechanism, or whatever that we go. But we'll be back here next Monday to do it all over again, where we keep talking plain talk with the Monday Night Footballers. See ya.
So